This recording is going to cover the major functions of your 12 cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are part of your peripheral nervous system. Now, cranial nerves will differ in some aspects from your spinal nerves and your other nerves, in that some of them are not mixed nerves. The mixed nerves contain both afferent and efferent fibers. Some of the cranial nerves only have afferent nerve fibers, while others have only efferent nerve fibers. So we'll start with your first cranial nerve, which is your olfactory nerve. Now, the olfactory nerve is purely sensory. So it has only afferent nerve fibers. It carries sensory information in regards to smell, ultimately to your olfactory cortex, which is in the temporal lobe of the brain. Now, I want you to bring your attention, the olfactory nerve is actually right there. It is not the olfactory bulb, nor it is the olfactory tract, although a lot of the lab models will label those as the olfactory nerve. Now, the second cranial nerve is your optic nerve, which again is purely sensory. It carries information in regards to vision, to ultimately to the visual cortex in the occipital lobe of the brain. Cranial nerve number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. Oculo referring to the eye. Motor is telling you this is purely a motor nerve. So this one is motor. So it contains only efferent nerve fibers, and it's going to innervate either skeletal muscles or smooth muscles. So we're going to look at 4 skeletal muscles that it innervates. Those are going to be 4 extrinsic muscles of the eye, because they're going to attach to the exterior surface of the eye and cause some different movements of the eyeball. The 4 muscles, I'm circling or boxing: medial rectus muscle, inferior rectus muscle, superior rectus muscle, and inferior oblique. The way they name these muscles is how the muscle fibers run. They run straight, it's rectus. If it runs at an angle, it's oblique. Superior means it's attaching to the superior surface of the eye, inferior to the inferior surface of the eye. Medial, it's attaching to the medial surface of the eye. If it was a lateral, it would attach to the lateral surface of the eyeball. So let's look at those 4 muscles and kind of the main actions of the muscles. Medial rectus is right here. It allows you to turn your eye to the midline. The superior rectus muscle, which you see here, allows one to look up. Inferior rectus, which you see right here, allows one to look down. Inferior oblique, which you see right here, allows you to look up and to the sides. So if I draw 2 eyeballs, up and to the sides. So that's what those are involved in. Now, the oculomotor nerve also innervates intrinsic muscles of the eye, which are smooth muscles. 2 muscles that are associated with the iris, which is the colored part of your eye, are the pupillary muscles. We have pupillary dilator muscles, also referred to as pupillary radial muscles, and we have pupillary constrictor muscles, also referred to as pupillary sphincter muscles. The pupillary sphincter muscles are the ones here closest to the pupil. If they contract, you'll notice is the pupil is going to be smaller, which causes less light to enter the eye. If the dilator muscles contract, you see the pupil gets much bigger, allowing more light into the eye. Now, the oculomotor nerve also innervates the ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles are associated with the lens of your eye. The lens of the eye will help with refraction of light as it enters the eye, and it'll be involved in trying to make sure the light rays hit the optimum or the area of highest visual acuity on your eye. And so sometimes we need to change the shape of the lens. So if the ciliary muscles contract, You'll notice over here the lens gets fatter. This will be referred to as accommodation, and this is going to be required if you're looking at things up close for near vision. Over on the left, this is what happens if you're looking at things from a distance or far vision, is the ciliary muscles relax and we see the lens get flatter. Now actually I got to go back. So we have cranial nerve number 3, which is the oculomotor nerve, which is a motor nerve. And then we have cranial nerve number 4, which you see here is the trochlear nerve. That is purely motor again. This innervates another extrinsic muscle of the eye, and it's the superior oblique muscle. Notice that this thing comes in and kind of turned around. What you'll see is trochlea means pulley, because this trochlea is a pulley, and you see the muscle comes here, and here's the tendon coming and attaching to the upper surface of the eye. This nerve, or this muscle I should say, is going to be involved in, I'm going to draw 2 eyeballs again. The superior oblique allows one to rotate your eye down and to the sides. So we're going like that. So that is your trochlear nerve. Cranial nerve number 5 is your trigeminal nerve. And trigeminal nerve has 3 branches. So we have the tri. Ophthalmic branch, which comes up towards the eye. Maxillary branch, because here's the maxilla. Here's your mandible, so that it has a mandibular branch. So this nerve is a mixed nerve. So it's involved in if someone touches your face, touches your eye, you have something inside your mouth, you burn your mouth, something's very spicy, the trigeminal nerve is going to be carrying that sensory information. This innervates your teeth, your gums, your tongue. So if you burn your tongue, the trigeminal nerve carries that information. The trigeminal nerve also is involved in chewing, and it's actually the mandibular branch that has the efferent fibers. So the fancy term for chewing is mastication. So innervates muscles involved in actual chewing. Okay, so this is a mixed nerve. Then, let's see, go back here. So the cranial nerve number 6 is abducens. This is a motor nerve, so only efferent fibers. This is going to innervate your last extrinsic muscle of the eye, which is the lateral rectus. Now they cut it. You see it cut here. Here it is there. So lateral rectus, I'm going to draw it over here. Here's the lateral rectus. It allows you to move your eye to the side. Abduct. So that's what I call it, abducens. So if you have another eye, that would be moving that way. Okay, so that is your cranial nerve number 6. The facial nerve, or cranial nerve number 7, is a mixed nerve. There's 5 branches of it. You don't have to memorize the 5 branches, but you can kind of look at what they're named, except for zygomatic. It's the only one you've never seen before. You can make sense of why they call each branch what they do. The facial nerve is involved in facial expression. So you'll notice on the picture, innervates a lot of muscles. So if you purse your lips, you smile, those type of things, that's going to be involved in facial expression. The facial nerve also is involved in, this is going to be a motor function. It innervates the lacrimal glands, the nasal glands. So lacrimation is tear production. Nasal, you think about if your nose drips, so that the secretions from the nasal cavity. It also innervates 2 of the salivary glands, the sublingual and the submandibular glands. So it's also involved in salivation. Now these are all motor functions. The only thing about these compared to what we looked at with the muscles of facial expression is the muscles of facial expression are skeletal muscles. They're going to be innervated by somatic motor fibers. Well, these other ones, the lacrimal glands, the nasal glands, the salivary glands, those are going to be innervated by visceral motor fibers, which are going to be part of the autonomic nervous system. So technically, you have different types of efferent fibers. Now this nerve is, I had said it was mixed, and so to kind of give you an example of the sensory function, see here's innervation of the tongue. It's involved in the sense of taste. So information in regards to taste from the anterior 2/3 of your tongue is from the facial nerve. The vestibular cochlear nerve is cranial nerve number 8. This is purely sensory. One of the branches, the vestibular branch, innervates the semicircular canals, which have receptors involved in equilibrium. The vestibular or the cochlear branch is going to be carrying information from the cochlea, which has receptors involved in hearing. So the equilibrium, that sensory information is ultimately going to be sent to the cerebellum. Information in regards to hearing is ultimately going to be sent to your auditory cortex in your temporal lobe. Now the next one, cranial nerve number 9, is the glossopharyngeal. Glosso having to do means kind of tongue. Pharyngeal, think throat or pharynx. This is also a mixed nerve. So glossopharyngeal is going to be involved in taste. So the posterior third of your tongue. So it's going to be taste, that's sensory. It's also sensory in the fact that it's going to be involved in, if you notice here, it says carotid sinus. This is where we have baroreceptors, which sense pressure changes. So this is involved in blood pressure regulation, carrying sensory information in regards to blood pressure. Carotid bodies, they have it labeled. This has receptors, chemoreceptors, that detect changes in, say, oxygen levels and carbon dioxide levels. So it's involved in regulation of blood gases, which way we're going to regulate it is by changing respiration. So that's another sensory function. The motor is it does innervate another salivary gland called the parotid salivary gland. So that's salivation. And the motor function, it does have some innervation of some of the muscles associated with the throat. So it is also, to some extent, involved in swallowing. Now, another sensory function is if you touch the back of your throat, say someone takes a tongue depressor, is the glossopharyngeal is actually carrying that sensory information, and ultimately it leads you to gag. But the vagus nerve, which is our next nerve, is going to be the one that causes you to actually gag. Now the vagus is cranial nerve number 10. They call it the wanderer, like think vagrant. Is the vagus is going to have some common things with the glossopharyngeal. It's involved in blood pressure regulation. It's involved in regulation of blood gas levels or respiration. It's also involved in taste. But here, the information is coming from the root of your tongue and your epiglottis, generally involved in the taste of water, because believe it or not, that's a taste, water. The vagus, though, you'll notice, follow it, a lot of the branches go really far away, innervates the heart, so it's involved in the regulation of heart rate. It innervates a lot of the parts of the gastrointestinal tract, like the small intestine and the stomach, and the pancreas, and gallbladder. So it's involved in regulation of gastrointestinal motility and secretions. So it's involved in a number of different things. So this one, we're going to put a big star by this, though. This one is very, very important, cranial nerve. You can't, if you cut it up here, you would die, because it's involved in such important functions as blood pressure and respiration. So this one's a really important cranial nerve. Now, cranial nerve number 11 is the accessory nerve. That to the muscles that it innervates, this is a motor nerve, is trapezius muscle, which allows you to shrug your shoulders. The sternocleidomastoid, which they cut right here, there's the other end. This kind of allows you to kind of move your chin, your neck to your chest. The hypoglossal nerve is cranial nerve number 12, which also is motor. This one is involved in movements of your tongue. Now, if we look here at this picture, the picture's kind of cool, in which they made this little cartoony guy using numbers. Now, they used Arabic numbers. Well, you're supposed to, when you write cranial nerves, they need to be in Roman numerals. But this is a really good way of kind of looking at some of the major functions of what these cranial nerves do. So if you look at 1, which is the nose, smell. 2, you see the eye. That's in vision. 3, you see up here like the eyebrows. So that's kind of think movements of the eye. 4 is also movements of the eye. And kind of think about why it's there at the center. So cranial nerve number 4 is your trochlear nerve that innervated the superior oblique muscle, which allowed you to rotate your eyes down into the sides. Cranial nerve number 5 is at the follow right here. Trigeminal nerve. So it does innervate your skin of your face. 6 was your vestibular, 6 was abducens nerve, which innervated the lateral rectus muscle. So you see it over here to the sides. Again, allow you to look to the side. I want to erase it so you can see it. 7, follow 7 here and here. That was facial. So you see it's encompassing the face. That, remember, it was involved in facial expression. 8, vestibulocochlear nerves. You see it there with the ears, because that's where the semicircular canals are, in the cochlea, are located. 9 was your glossopharyngeal, and I had said it innervated the posterior third of your tongue, so it was involved in taste. 10 was vagus. I had mentioned it's involved in taste, but it innervates the roots of your tongue and your epiglottis, which is way back in there, but also definitely very important in swallowing. So you see it kind of there in the back of the throat. 11 was the accessory nerve. So I said it's involved in shoulder shrugging. So they see it's little tattoos on his arms. 12 was hypoglossal. And hypoglossal was involved in tongue movements. That's why they stuck it on the tongue. So I thought this was kind of a cool picture. So this is the end of recording that kind of quickly covers some of the major functions of your cranial nerves.